George William Reymore was born on September 10, 1924, in Cheyenne, Wyoming. He was the third child born to Howard and Orpha Reymore, joining his siblings, Elmo and Margaret. Elmo was the first child, born 6 years before Margaret, but died of an unknown cause sometime before the 1930 census was collected. The Reymores lived in Laramie, Wyoming for at least a decade, with Howard working as a farmer to support his family. In April 1934, the Reymore family left their home in Laramie and began a long, arduous journey westward to Kennewick, Washington, where they began life anew. At the time, Kennewick was just a small town on the southwest bank of the Columbia River. In Kennewick, Howard worked as a laborer and a farmer, much as he had done in Wyoming. Though George's early life is not well documented, his high school years are where he first began to make his mark. George was well liked by his classmates and was a very active student, as he was involved in a variety of sports and clubs. He played softball and also played center for the football team, earning a letter in his senior year. Regarding clubs, George was a part of the debate team, participated in the senior play, and sang tenor with the Glee Club. He also served as the president of High Y, a boys' Christian group that was associated with the YMCA, a position that showed his leadership ability and faith. While George split time with a variety of groups, he showed particular interest and ability with the Future Farmers of America Club throughout his high school career. During a conference that took place at Washington State College, he won a Superior Award in Horticulture as a sophomore. During his senior year in January 1942, he won first place in public speaking for a speech titled "Why Cooperate?" When it came time to graduate in June 1942, Reymore scored another honor as he was chosen to be one of 5 student speakers for commencement. Seeking to further his career in agriculture, he enrolled at Washington State College and began classes in fall 1942. George majored in agriculture, and to pay for his college education, Reymore won a $100 college scholarship from Sears and Roebuck Company, an impressive sum for the day. Flush with success from high school, Reymore journeyed to Pullman for the next phase of his life. Like many other WSC students who went on to serve during the war, George Reymore's time in college was very brief. Though he only spent 1 year in Pullman, Reymore had some accomplishments and left a strong impression with those who knew him. By late September, Reymore was among the many freshmen that joined Greek life, pledging with the Acacia fraternity. Though he was only a freshman with few connections in Pullman, Reymore quickly impressed his fraternity brothers and found a place to serve. Only a couple weeks after pledging, Reymore was elected to serve as a pledge officer, specifically the vice president of the Acacia Pledge Leadership. This quick ascent into the ranks of his fraternity displayed Reymore's leadership ability, showing himself to be a capable member in only a brief amount of time. As the year progressed, he continued to demonstrate his talents within Acacia. In February 1943, Reymore was elected to serve as the rushing chairman, a post that placed him in a position of leadership for the next class of Acacia pledges. Given his new promotion and commitment to Acacia, it seemed as though Reymore might stay another year at WSC. Despite his popularity in his fraternity and skills in agriculture, Reymore left Pullman after only 1 year to join the Marine Corps. In late March 1943, Reymore was reported to have taken his final physical exam in Spokane and was set to leave for training. Though it appeared to be an abrupt end to a promising college career, he was just like many other college men who chose duty over their education. At only 18 years old, George Reymore left everything behind to fight in World War II. George Reymore's time in the Marines began shortly after his last physical exam, as he was sent to San Diego for training. He stayed in San Diego until mid-May, long enough to report back to his former colleagues at WSC that he really likes the Marines. After completing his training, likely at Camp Elliott, Reymore was attached to the 3rd Marine Regiment of the 3rd Marine Division. By the time Reymore joined the unit in the Pacific, the 3rd Marines had already experienced combat. The division was first sent to Guadalcanal for training and rehearsal for the Battle of Bougainville in November 1943. At Bougainville Island, the 3rd Marines got their first taste of battle against tough Japanese resistance. After 2 months of fighting, the division was sent back to Guadalcanal in January 1944 to recover and await further deployment. George Reymore left the U.S. on December 1, 1943, and joined the unit as they recuperated. For the next few months, the 3rd Marines waited for deployment, as rumors circulated that the division would be included in a number of different operations. Invasions of various small islands and even Saipan were planned to involve the 3rd Marines, but never materialized. Months continued to pass until July 1944, when word of a new invasion was delivered. For the next operation, the 3rd Marines were set to recapture the island of Guam. After months of waiting, George Reymore would finally see battle. The island of Guam was an American possession that was captured by Imperial Japanese forces shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Though Imperial Japan captured a great deal of territory during the initial outbreak of war, American forces slowly regained the initiative. The American island-hopping campaigns were hard-fought but successful, and by 1944, the U.S. was finally ready to free Guam from Japanese control. Nevertheless, Japanese forces on Guam anticipated the upcoming invasion and prepared a strong defense. On July 21st, amphibious landings took place as Marine forces scrambled onto the beaches, with Reymore and the 3rd Marine Division landing on Guam's western shores. 20 days of brutal fighting commenced as Japanese troops defended every corner of the island to the last man. The rough terrain on Guam slowed down the Marines' advance, while also shielding Japanese troops. Despite this, the Marines gradually retook the island with grit and determination. The Japanese on Guam were slowly worn down after days of combat, but continued to exact a heavy toll on American forces. On August 2nd, George Reymore was killed in action, as the last of the Japanese defenders were being cleared. Only a few days later, on August 10th, Guam was officially declared secure. When news of Reymore's death returned to the United States, many people grieved the loss. Along with the Reymore family, George's brothers at Acacia mourned with great emotion at the loss of one of their own. In an Acacia magazine published in 1947, the WSC Acacia chapter spoke about the loss of Reymore, saying, "It is so difficult to say just how we feel about the loss of George Reymore. When we were informed that he was killed on action on Guam, he left us without a word. A picture of him will be framed and put in the chapter room, showing the date and place he died. All his friends and brothers mourn his absence." George Reymore was only 19 years old at the time of his death. He was initially buried on Guam, but was reburied in 1948 at the Golden Gate National Cemetery in San Bruno, California. Despite going to WSC for a single year, Reymore's name was added to the WSU Veterans Memorial on campus, forever tying his story to Washington State University.